Hi everyone, thank you very much for joining me today. I'm going to go through an exercise on how to do password recovery on a Cisco switch. So I'll be going through the step-by-step procedure to do password recovery on all these different types of switches available here. So the process for all of these switches is pretty much the same, and this process will cover all of those. So if you're doing a password recovery for whatever reason, whether you've got a switch on the network that you've forgotten the password for and you need to recover it, or you've bought a second-hand switch from eBay or wherever and it's got some old config on there which has got password protection on there and you can't get into the switch, then you need to follow these step-by-step procedures that I'm going to describe. Please note that if your switch is part of the network and it's live, that you need to make sure you got outage, because we are going to need to power cycle the switch, and therefore you're going to lose connectivity to the switch, and any devices on there are going to have downtime as well. So make sure that you've got an outage window for that switch. Right, so first thing you need to do is to make sure that you've got your Cisco console cable, the blue console cable that comes with your device, plugged into the console port of the switch and connected to your laptop, and the cable is connected to your laptop, and you're running some kind of terminal emulation software. So you can run PuTTY, Teraterm or Hyperterminal, not a problem, but you need to make sure that all of these settings shown here are as described. So you need to make sure the baud rate is 9600, data bits 8, parity none, stop bits 1, flow control X on X off. And once you've got that, you power up the switch and you can make sure you can see some output. If you can't see any output, then your terminal settings aren't correct. So as long as you can see output, you're now ready to do the recovery. You need to make sure you're familiar with this front panel of the switch, as highlighted here, because there's a mode button on that switch, and the LED here, the stat LED. So you need to power cycle the switch, and then you need to hold that mode button. And while you're holding that mode button, the stat LED will light up on the initial power up, and then will go off. At that point, on your hyperterminal, you should see this switch prompt here. So once you're in that mode, that's where we start making changes, and the different switches highlighted here, shown here in the table. The process is exactly the same, but you might have to hold it for 5 or 15 seconds. It's just slightly different for different switches, but at the end of the day, you still have to hold the same button. Okay, so we're going to dive straight into the live demonstration. So if I just minimize that and bring up my console, there we go. Let's reduce that slightly. Okay, so we're going to do this power cycle, and we're going to hold the mode button. Okay, here we go. And there we go, that's done. So that took almost like 5 or 6 seconds, no more. But it gives you a nice little 3 commands here as well. These are the 3 commands you need to do next. So if we follow our procedure, so the 4th step is to issue the flash init command, which is this command here. So if we just press that and then enter, and it roughly takes about 7 or 8 seconds to initialize the flash. And there we have it. It's done it. It took 7 seconds. It's initialized the flash. Okay. So step 5, we're ready to apply the load helper command. So again, it's the second one down on the list. So if we just double click that and enter that, load helper, and that's it. We're ready to go. So the step 6 here is do the dir space flash. dir space flash. You must make sure you do the double colon, otherwise it'll return nothing for you. So if you do a dir flash, and you can see the files that are currently in your flash. The important file is this config.txt. Now when the switch boots up, it reads this config.txt and it takes the config off of that and boots according to that. Now your passwords are stored on that. Okay, So what you need to do is to rename that file. So if we carry on following our steps, so we've done the dir flash. This is the bit we need to do. Now you need to be very careful here, because quite often this is the command that never works. Okay, when you say type rename space flash colon, and the file name is config.text, and then you need a space, and you need to make sure your spaces, you're not overdoing the spaces, otherwise it will return unknown command. So if we do a flash colon, and we rename it config.old. Alright, and we do a dir flash again with a colon, and you can see that it's renamed that file. What that's effectively doing is that when the switch now boots up, it won't look at, it can't see the config.txt file anymore, which we've now renamed as config.old. So it thinks that it hasn't got a config, and it reboots as if it was a brand new out of the box switch. Okay, so we're now ready to reload. So if we go to step 8, we've done the dir flash. Step 9, we're ready to boot the switch now. So if we do a boot command, and off it goes, and it takes about a minute or so to boot up. So I'm just going to pause the video there. Right, so the boot process has now completed, and it comes up with the initial configuration dialog. So at this point you need to say no, so you need to make sure you hit the no button and you pressed enter. Right, once you pressed enter, it goes into the switch mode, and that's it. So for those who just want to wipe the config, don't want to care much about anything else, you're almost done. If you look at the step 10, right, we've issued the no command, right, and you're done. You can, if you want, if you do a dir flash colon again, you can see that config old file, and you can just delete that. So you just type delete flash colon config.old, and it deletes that. And then you can go ahead, configure your switch how you want, do a write memory or a copy run start or copy start run, whatever you want, do all your configuration, and it will create a new config.txt file for you. So I'll repeat again, if you wanted to delete the config, you've done now, you're finished. But if this is part of your network switch and you want to retrieve the old configuration, you need to now follow the step 10 onwards. Okay, so step 10 is done. Step 11 you need to follow if you want to recover your old configuration. Okay, so you need to make sure you still got that config.old file, yeah, and we need to now recover that. So the first thing you need to do is to rename the flash file again. So you need to rename that back to config.txt. Again, I reiterate, you need to type these commands in properly, otherwise it won't recognize it. Okay, so if you just do that rename, oh, got a caps lock on there, rename flash colon, and this one is config.old, that one there, yeah, put a space in there, and then flash colon, this time we'll name it config.text. And it says, is that the destination file name? You press enter, and it's done that. If you do a dir flash again, you can see that it's now recovered that config.txt. If you reboot now, it will reboot to that config.txt, but bearing in mind we haven't changed the passwords yet, so we need to now carry on the next step, which is step 12. So step 12 is now to take that config.txt file and apply it to the running config. So the command for that is copy flash config.txt, and now we need to take that to the system and then the running config. And that's it. We just need to press enter. Once we do that, it will take whatever's in the config text file and apply it to the running config. So you'll see the host name and everything will change as to what's in the configuration file. So we just press enter for that, and it says destination running config. We say yes to that, and there we go. See that? It's changed my host name because that's what's in my config file. If we do the show VLAN, You can see that I've got a number of VLANs configured. So it's now loaded the config. Okay. You're now ready to change your passwords. Okay. So you now need to go into configuration T mode, conf T mode, and change your passwords. So you go into conf T, and then you put in your enable secret Cisco. Let's call it Cisco. Here you can change your line VTY as well if you wanted to. So line VTY 0 space 15, password Cisco, and you can change your console as well. Line console 0, password Cisco. Right, all your passwords are now changed to what you want, which is now Cisco, but you can change it to whatever password you want. And what you need to do now is do a write memory, or you can do a copy running config to startup config. Press enter, and it's done. Now if you reload, you will see that it reloads to the new config and your new passwords as well. There we go. So just reload that. I'll pause the video while that reloads. Right, we're back again. So this is almost booted up now, and it's still just coming up. Press enter, and there we go. So it's come up with the config that we saved. Press the enable. Now you can use your password that you changed, which was Cisco, and you're in. So that's basically it. That's the password recovery. If you're interested, I've got a website which is http://ciscoexamplelabs.blogspot.co.uk. I've got the full details and the step-by-step procedure on how to do this recovery highlighted in there. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you found that useful, and thanks again.